One of the reasons why some people are hesitant to get into sports is because of injury. A lot of sports, contact and non-contact, do carry a risk of injury, and that's part of sports. Training and recovery involves a lot of management to ensure that the athlete's body is in good condition and that they can perform and minimize the risk of injury. Archery is appealing because it's not one of the sports that get you injured. It carries the label as being one of the safest sports, and in a supervised environment there's practically no risk to anybody else. At worst, your injuries may include a string slap or sore fingers. Yes, there's the occasional photo of someone piercing their hand with an arrow, but those are very rare and they can be easily avoided. What I want to focus on in this video is probably the most common injury that an archer may experience, especially if you're new. This is still a very uncommon injury, especially if you're being trained, but it can happen if you're doing something wrong. This injury happens in the shoulders, especially the rotator cuff. Some people will report pains in their drawing shoulder, while it can happen in the bow shoulder as well, depending on what the cause is. You can recognize symptoms of shoulder injury by persistent, obvious pain. I'm not talking about feeling sore from doing a shooting session. That's quite normal, especially if you haven't worked out your artery muscles. But I'm talking about a consistent pain that can be felt throughout the day and night. Given the limited motion involved in archery, this is pretty much the only injury that really happens, and with proper training, it practically never happens. Instead, this is more likely if you're shooting with incorrect form. I want to demonstrate the drawing technique without looking too indecent. There are several variations of drawing technique, depending on how you've been trained, but all of them engage the same specific muscle groups. Basically what you're doing is squeezing your shoulder blade together, and that engages the back muscles. You really feel that pressure on your rhomboids, which are around here. So when you set the scapula correctly, you feel that back muscle engage. So this particular muscle group is what you're feeling most of the weight on. The other thing to keep in mind is that you want to keep the push-pull forces equal. So you don't want to push too hard with one arm or draw too hard with one arm. You want to keep it equal during the shot sequence. First, I'll do a front demonstration. What I'm looking for in a draw from this angle is this movement. I start with my arm slightly raised with elbow high, and I'm going to rotate my drawing shoulder. So I'm going to come in like this. I'm going to set my scapula around here. You see that movement? The scapula is set there, and then I'll lock my anchor in and transfer the weight onto my rhomboids. So it's not a straight motion where I go from here to here, then let go, but rather I'm coming in, I'm setting my shoulder in like this, and then I'm setting the holding weight on my rhomboid. So I can feel it here without holding the bow. I can feel that my back is engaged around here. So let's do it with the bow. So this is my usual 40-pound bow. I'm going to do exactly what I just said with the bow. I'm going to raise the bow, starting high, nose height. I'm going to come in, set, and then holding position. Okay, so next we'll go to the back view. So again, watch the places of the scapula and the pressure on the rhomboids. So I'm using the bow. I'm going to shoot towards here so you can see a good view of my drawing shoulder. I'm going to raise the bow and do the shot. Alright, now I'll do it again. So, set position. And again. If you do this correctly, you feel the tension in your back. You start feeling a little sore around here during your shooting session, and that's fine, that's normal. That's the good sort of pain. Keep on doing that and you'll be working up your artery muscles. However, if you feel the pain somewhere else, then you may be doing something wrong. If you're feeling pain in your front shoulder, this may be due to too much push. This may be due to forcing your shoulder or your arm too far forward, trying to get the bow to your forward draw. So instead of doing the correct draw where everything's balanced, you may be drawing and then pushing too far forward. Now, you feel that tension if you do this the incorrect way. If you put too much tension in your arm, you feel it in a lot of places. You feel it in your shoulder, you feel it in your hand especially, and you may feel it in your elbow joint. It's also a problem when you're using a clicker, because some people may need to get through the extra centimeter on the clicker, so they might try to squeeze through by pushing just that bit further to get that last centimeter. Another cause is improper alignment. You may find that your shoulder is turned too far around your body, so you're popping out like this. So rather than having that bone-on-bone straightness, you're having your shoulder popped out and it's putting extra tension on the shoulder muscles like this. This can also happen if you have a habit of leaning backwards. So again, instead of having that bone-on-bone alignment through your arm, through your shoulder, through your back, you're putting tension on the wrong muscles. So you're putting your shoulders popping up and that extra tension is placed there. If you take a look at the drawing shoulder, you may feel pain around here. Now, this often isn't a good sign either. I find this is often caused by the archer not stretching out enough, or otherwise not having the correct back muscle engagement. So rather than setting your scapula correctly and setting the weight on the back muscle here, the archer is still essentially pulling. This is a common form fault is you have to transfer from the draw to the holding position. And some people, especially when they first learn, they skip that. They go straight from here to here, and they're still pulling. In fact, I'll show you using a stretching band. The motion I see that indicates form fault is this. You pull, and then basically they keep on pulling. There's no back tension. They continue in the draw. Now, this is a huge problem because, again, you lose that bone-on-bone connection. So rather than have everything perfectly aligned, you have this arm sticking out, and it's still there. So if I turn around from the back view, you can see that as I'm shooting from a compressed position, rather than engaging my back muscles, I'm doing this. I'm going, yeah. And you see here, I'm still pulling with this arm. So all the pressure is here and here. Basically, your body isn't working efficiently. It's fighting against the bow, it's fighting against itself, and you especially feel it when you try to expand, and instead of your shoulder blades coming together like it should be, your drawing motion becomes unbalanced on one side. These are generally seen as form faults, and with the correct training and practice, you can fix these faults. It's normal to feel sore, even in the shoulders, if you've had a bad day and you're not shooting with the perfect correct form. That's normal. That's the way your body gives you feedback. There's the right sort of pain, which is mostly focused on the upper back and the rhomboids. And then there's the sharper pain, which you might feel in your shoulders. And that's an indication that you may be doing something wrong. Now, this sort of thing usually won't cause injury, unless it's a chronic problem and you've been doing it for a long time. However, there is something that really makes it an immediate problem. Draw weight. Now, I admit, I'm a little strict on people who start on a high draw weight. I'm talking about over 40 pounds. For the first bow especially, and the reason is because the high amount of stress involved on your body. If you're not shooting with correct form, and you're making mistakes in your shot process, like the ones I mentioned before, you're far more likely to cause damage to your shoulders. Even compound shooters face the same problem. I mean, even though you might have a high let-off, you're still pulling 50, 60 pounds, and then it was the same motion. So if you're a small person especially, and I'm a small guy, but if you're smaller than me and you're not well built, keep in mind that drawing a 60-pound bow is going to take a lot out of you. Combine that with the wrong technique, and you may seriously cause muscle damage that can put you out of archery. I really want to reinforce the notion of picking a reasonable draw weight. From a coaching point of view, it's really hard to teach someone to break habits and use good technique if they can't control their bow, if they can't control their draw weight. If the draw weight's too high, this is what we call overbowing. And there's never a situation, in my opinion, where you should get a high-powered bow to learn with. This is why we suggest people start low. It's easier to correct form faults, and it's easier on the body. And over time, the archer will develop their strength and technique so that they can progress to a heavier bow. This also means that you may be buying multiple bows. You may have to get different limbs or different bow entirely. This is normal. This is the way archers progress through their equipment. Try to get it out of your mind that you're buying one bow for life, that one single definitive purchase. No, if you want to take archery seriously and you want to grow from being this weak, noodle-armed stick figure to having the right muscles for archery, you will have to buy different equipment as you progress. If you just go, oh, I want to go hunting, I need a 50-pound bow, and you buy that straight away with no training and no strength and no stamina and no technique, then you are going to risk serious injury. It's just like lifting weights. You can't start too high too soon or you will hurt yourself. A lot of people, I notice field archers tend to do this, will push that you go for the higher poundage and that you can get used to it within a few months. And yes, you can. But on the other side of the spectrum, I'm erring on the side of caution because I know from experience most adults can't handle that high weight. I'd much rather see someone start low and learn to shoot safely and enjoy the experience than to see someone fight against their own bow and risk injury. And look, it's fairly common to see someone with a 55-pound bow, recurve or compound, doing this. They're trying so hard to pull the bow back, and they can't. Even the recurve hunters they go, and that's as far as they can go. They'll tell that person to stop shooting immediately, because it's going to cause injury. They'll tell you to drop the bow and pick up a lighter, 18-pound, 20-pound club bow. And look, it doesn't matter if it hurts your ego. We're not going to let someone tear their own muscles shooting an overpowered bow for absolutely no reason. To sum up, there are a couple of things you need to do to avoid shoulder injuries. Firstly, make sure that you are using a draw weight that you can reasonably handle. Secondly, make sure your form is correct. Too much tension on the shoulder or the wrong alignment can lead to having too much stress on the wrong muscle groups and causing muscle tears. If you do feel chronic pain, consult your physio. It's not a normal part of archery. It's not a normal part of archery. You may have an injury. It's much better to do it right and avoid hurting yourself than going down the long road of rehabilitation. Anyway, this is New Sensei. Hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.